Hello everyone, X-Wall Kill Bethelite here, and it is Onyx bath time here. Let's get nice and clean here, Mr. Onyx. In the last video we were talking about how you haven't even gotten wet yet. We're talking about how the Jehovah's Witnesses and their doctrine, they believe that just the visible representation of a religion is a witness. Just a visible representation of a religion is a witness, meaning they set up a cart, stand by that cart, and not speak to anybody all day. Well, they still count that as witnessing because Jehovah's Witnesses don't really talk to nobody anymore. Nobody talks to Jehovah's Witnesses. Who talks to Jehovah's Witnesses? Most of the time, they just walking around with magazines, and they really do believe that all they have to do is just be visible. Just be visible. And that's a witness, or that's preaching. Let's get that belly. Well, the problem with this is, like we discussed in our last video, churches are far more visible than Jehovah's Witnesses, meaning churches have been doing a much better job at preaching according to the Jehovah's Witness definition. You're going to give me a bath too here. You keep doing that. According to the Jehovah's Witness definition of preaching, which is just being out and just being visible, right? Then according to that definition, the churches are far more visible. The structures that they build and call churches, they use the cross, which is the most recognizable Christian symbol there is. They use that cut it out. We got to keep from getting any water in his near Onyx ears here. So you notice I'm not bathing them anywhere from up here forward. It's all from here back. See, because he likes to hop up in my bed and whatnot. He's tall enough now. You can see how tall he is. Look how tall he is now. He's tall enough to hop up in the bed, hop up into all different types of places. Well, it's not a problem if he's nice and clean, so we're going to scrub a dub Onyx in the tub. Scrub a dub Onyx in the tub. So the problem that Jehovah's Witnesses have is they can't really say they're doing a global preaching work because they're not really talking to anybody. They're going to a bunch of doors, knocking on them, and most likely nobody's opening. So it's hard to call that preaching, but they do. They have these field service reports. Don't you try jumping in. Don't you try the escape. You can take that one. I got another one here. They basically will get in their cars, take a Watchtower, put the Watchtower inside of a laundromat, not speak to anybody, but put the Watchtower in the laundromat and call that preaching. They literally count that as time preaching. Literally, they count that as time preaching. That's not a global preaching work. Putting magazines all over the city is not preaching, right? But they think Jehovah's Witnesses think it's preaching because that magazine is just visible. They ain't talk to nobody but the magazine. As long as something religious is visible, like one of their carts, they believe that that's preaching. Well, churches are far more visible, right? Churches, you can't miss a church. People see churches all the time. These huge churches, doesn't it make way more sense for Christians to build structures called churches that you can't mistake them for anything other than a religious statement? Here is where we preach about Christ. And they have crosses on top of them. You can't, you have to, I wonder if that's like you know how we sneeze? When dogs do that shake thing, I wonder if it's like just a reaction that they can't even control. They feel wet, they just start shaking like that. I wonder. We're almost done, Onyx, almost done. Then you're going to be so nice and clean and happy. You're going to attack it. These structures that have been set up, these churches with the cross on top of it, that have been set up to be visible, that's a much better job of preaching. According to the Jehovah's Witness definition of preaching, just being visible, the church setup is much better than the Jehovah's Witness system, which is to put magazines all over creation, putting magazines in people's doors and putting magazines inside of laundromats and writing letters to random people that they don't even know if the person ever even opened the letter up, and making phone calls to random people, right? Getting a bunch of magazines, putting them inside of a briefcase, and then walking around somebody's block. Cut it out on it. Walking around somebody's block, and most people not even opening the door. You know, what Jehovah's Witnesses end up doing is just getting a nice walk-in. The church setup is so much better. You don't have to do that. You don't have to disturb people and wake people up on Saturday. People see the churches all over the place, right? So, according to the Jehovah's Witness definition of preaching, the churches were already doing the preaching before Jehovah's Witnesses ever started, before that organization ever existed. There were these giant structures called churches, which are much better than a cart. Jehovah's Witnesses show up after churches have already established Christianity all over the country and set up churches as a visible representation so that anybody seeing them knows they have an opportunity to learn. The churches already did it before the Jehovah's Witnesses ever came onto the scene. So what is the purpose of Jehovah's Witnesses then? You got to understand, we're letting some of that water out now. It's about time to get Onyx out of there. You got to understand that Watchtower, their whole purpose is to get subscriptions. Their whole purpose is to get their magazine out. That's the only thing Watchtower is concerned with. What's wrong? That's the only thing Watchtower is concerned with. You hear that water coming out of there? Watchtower is just concerned with placing their magazines, their books, their book publishing company. Get Onyx. Say hello, everyone. Onyx here. Watchtower is just a book publishing company And they trick Jehovah's Witnesses into thinking standing next to a cart is preaching because they're just visible. Walking down the street with a briefcase is preaching just because they're visible. They don't have to necessarily be talking to a lot of people or preaching in front of a large group of people. Well, if Jehovah's Witnesses spent 5 seconds thinking logically, they would realize churches are already visible. Churches have already done that. Churches don't have to walk around the block. You can see their structures that they've set up from 5 blocks away. You can't drive through a city most times without seeing the church. Christians have already done it. Right? Christians have already done it. So, what again is the purpose? You're about done. You're about done. We got you scrubbed up. We got you scrubbed up. Made sure to keep your ears nice and dry. But we got everything else. What's the purpose for Jehovah's Witnesses going around the block? And churches have already established visible places, visible representations, things people can see where they know that they can learn about the Bible. Right? What's the purpose in going door to door when everybody knows where the church is? Everybody already knows where the church is. Right? What's the point in having these little itty bitty carts stood up when everybody knows where the church is? There's mega churches now. There's churches you can't help but know it's there. Right? So then what's the purpose? Jehovah's Witnesses don't have a purpose. It's not preaching. They're not out preaching. They're wandering around with field service slips, pieces of paper, recording for Watchtower how many Watchtower magazines and publications they give out. This is a printing company. They're working for a printing company. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing, is working for a printing company. That's all they're doing is, honest God, all they're doing is working for a printing company here. That's it. So, let me know what you think about this. What is the purpose? If Christians set up this huge structure called a church that everybody can see and know this is where they can go and learn about Christianity, and no one is without a church. There's churches everywhere. Okay, then what then was the purpose for Jehovah's Witnesses to set up a bunch of carts? The churches have already done it. Jehovah's Witnesses are going over what churches already have done. There's no purpose. Right? And Watchtower has got to change the definition of preaching. Preaching and what's special about them isn't going door to door anymore because they stopped doing it. They stopped doing it. So now Watchtower's got to change the definition of preaching as just being visible or writing a letter and sending it to somebody or calling some random person or texting somebody at random. Now that's global preaching according to Watchtower. Right? But as I said before, If Armageddon is so imminent and so dangerous, why would you stop the preaching work for COVID? Why would you stop the preaching work for something more deadly and more imminent than COVID is? According to Jehovah's Witnesses, the end of the world is any day now, right? So then why would they plan on opening kingdom halls back up a year from now? These people shouldn't even think that there might be a year from now. These people should be like, there's no way we're stopping preaching for COVID. This global preaching, where we're not stopping it for COVID. We're going out door to door trying to save everybody, right? Well, according to them, well, no, we don't have to go door to door because we might catch COVID. We don't want that, right? We don't want to put our lives on the line for the preaching work, so we're just going to write letters and send it to random people, and that's called preaching? That's called preaching? Stop it. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. A lot of people want to see Onyx, and it was bath time, so comment down below. Let me know what you think. X-Wall Kill Bethelite signing out.